Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to the vlog, episode 37. In this session, we head up to Orange City to play a session of 1-2 that actually ends up turning into 1-3 with a $10 bomb pot. And we make a new fan of the channel, and he comes after me the entire episode. If you enjoy the content, like, subscribe. If you want to play with me online in the Button Clickers group on PokerBROS, the info is down below. Let's get to it.
If you're playing poker on the PokerBROS app, there's a club you've got to join, Button Clickers. This group has many vloggers in it, including Doug McCusker, who got me into the group, and I've been made an official affiliate. So, if you're interested in playing poker with me, join Club 21839 and use the referral ID 720791. I'm playing under the name BDM Professor. In the first hand of the night, we're in the cutoff, and we look down at King-Queen offsuit. There's a call from +1 before it folds to me, and I bump it up to $12. It folds to the small blind, who's a very competent player I've played with many times before. He makes the call. +1 ends up folding, so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is deuce 6-8. The small blind checks it over to me, and I put out a c-bet for $20. He thinks for a bit, and then he makes the call, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a 10 of spades, bringing a flush draw on the board. The small blind checks to me, and I decide to go ahead and slow down, and I check behind. The river is a 7 of spades, so it brings that backdoor flush in. The small blind leads into me for $20, and there's no way I can call here, so I fold. We're in the hijack this time, and we look down at ace-king of hearts. There is one call from an early position player before it folds to me, and I bump it up to $12. We get calls from the button, the big blind, and the early position limper, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is deuce 6-8 rainbow, so I whiff here. It checks to me, and I consider putting out a c-bet, but I decide to go ahead and just check, and the action checks all the way around. The turn is a king of diamonds, so I've turned top pair, but it brings in a flush draw. The action once again checks to me, and I fire out a bet of $30. Only the button calls here, so we're off to the river heads up. The river is an 8 and it pairs the board, and I actually think this is a pretty good card as I'm not putting him on an 8. I've got $110 in my stack, which is about the size of the pot, so I decide to go ahead and ship it, and he folds. We're in the cutoff, and we look down at ace-jack offsuit. There is one caller before the action folds to me, and I raise to $12. The button then 3-bets me to $35. The player on the button is a guy named Jack. He's a new vlog watcher, and he's made it clear he wants to play as many pots against me as possible. It folds back to me, I make the call, we're off to the flop heads up. The flop is ace-jack 3 with 2 diamonds, so I flop top 2 here. Jack has been very aggressive since he sat down, so I'm pretty comfortable checking here and that he's going to fire off afterwards, so I check, and he does fire off for $30. With a flush draw and a Broadway draw on the board, I decide to go ahead and raise for some protection, and I bump it up to $90. Jack folds pretty quickly. We're under the gun, and we look down at ace-10 offsuit. I've caught a lot of flack on this channel for having a very wide under-the-gun opening range, and I actually considered punting this hand, but instead I decided to go ahead and open it up for $12. Jack and +1 makes the call. It folds around to the button, who also calls. The small blind folds and the big blind calls. We're off to a flop multi-way. The flop is ace-10 jack rainbow, so I flop top and bottom pair here. I check, and Jack and +1 bets out for $16. The button makes the call, and the small blind folds. It's back on me, and it's time to figure out what I'm up against. I wasn't 3-bet pre-flop, so I'm not going to put anybody on a hand like jacks or 10s. I could definitely be up against a hand like ace-queen, which still has plenty of equity to call a raise here. Someone slow playing a hand like queens can't be happy with this board either. After analyzing all these things, I decide to bump it up to $60. +1 is not happy about it, and he ends up shoving for $115 total. The button gets out of the way, and obviously I call here, so we're going to see a run out.
You're straight? No. 2 pairs?
The turn brings a 7 of spades, the river an 8 of spades, which brings in a backdoor flush. My opponent flips over ace-queen, and I could tell pre-flop that he was considering a raise, but he didn't, and it happened to work out in my favor. Seat 7, which is a good vlogging seat, opened up, and I was actually going to move over there, but I mentioned that I liked the people I was sitting next to, and John, who's also a new vlog watcher, was nice enough to switch seats with me, so thanks, John. We are straddling from the button, and we wake up with a good hand here, ace-king offsuit. The small blind folds before the big blind raises to $12. It folds to the hijack, who makes the call, and when the action folds to me, I put in the 3-bet for $35. The big blind folds, but the hijack calls, so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is ace 7-5, so I flop top pair here. The action checks to me, and I bet out for $75. It might be a little bit aggressive, but this woman's been giving a lot of action. However, she's not going to give me any action, and she folds. Guys, these videos take a long time to make, but it only takes about 3 seconds to smash that like button and hit subscribe if you're not subscribed already. There's another button straddle. We're in +2, and we look down at king queen offsuit. The small blind and the big blind both make the call. The action folds to me, and the hijack John actually acts out of turn, and he tries to raise to $10.
We used to go out there like that. Hold on, I haven't acted yet.
And I decide to go ahead and raise, but I bump it up to $30. He calls pretty quickly.
No, that didn't deter you at all. Okay.
Didn't deter him one bit. Jack in the cutoff calls and folds back to the big blind, who also calls. We're off to a flop multi-way. We flop pretty good here with king high. It checks to me, and once again I fire out about a $75. Again, a little bit larger, but I'm playing with some action players here. However, a little bit too large. Everybody folds.
Oops. Well, there it is. King queen.
There was an interest list for a 1-3 with a $10 bomb pot game, and most of the list was actually sitting at my table. Here's what I've noticed about the 1-3 game. It plays much more like a 2-5 in terms of bet sizes. Originally, I didn't get myself on the list because I wasn't going to be there much longer, but since everybody else wants to play it, I said I would play it as well. They ended up making us change tables, but now the game is a 1-3 with a max $500 buy-in and a $10 bomb pot every dealer change. I'm going to start this 1-3 game with about $435 in my stack. We're in the small blind when we look down at 2 red aces. It folds to the hijack, who bumps it up to $20. The hijack is an action player. I think his name's Diego. I've actually played aces against this guy before in a previous vlog. And +1 says he's pot committed, so he makes the call as well. We're off to a flop. +1 also makes the call, so there's about 130 in the main pot and about 115 in the side pot. We're off to a turn. So this time I bet out for $140. The player in +1 makes the call, and that has me concerned. This is a board that could connect with him more than it could me because he was the straddler and said he was, quote, pot committed. I show my hand, and +1 mucks. So +3 wins the main pot, but I actually come out up a little bit over $100 just from the side pot. Jack in the cutoff calls, of course, and it folds to me, and I put in the 3-bet to $70. Diego, the hijack, ends up making the call, and Jack really wants to call, but he actually ends up folding, so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is king high with 2 clubs. If this were a rainbow board, I may consider checking to let Diego take the betting lead, but I decided to go ahead and bet out $150 here. I want to protect my hand with the draw out there, and I think Diego is the type of player who will call a bet if he has a strong draw. I don't think he has one this time, though, and unfortunately, he folds. This is a really interesting hand here, and I'm interested to see how bad you guys roast me in the comments for the way I played it. We're in the big blind, and once again, we look down at ace-king offsuit. There's a raise from +1 to $20. +2 also makes the call, and it folds to Jack on the button, who then puts in the 3-bet to $65. It folds to me, and I'm not comfortable here. Jack's won a few big pots, and he has almost $400 in his stack, and the player in +1 is pretty deep too, so there's a lot of money to play for, but a lot of money to lose too. Being out of position, I should probably be raising here, but I haven't run that well lately, and I've booked a nice win today, so I don't want to re-raise and face a shove or something like that and not really know what to do. If I call, there's no doubt Jack will pay me off on at least one street if I hit, so I end up just calling. +1 also makes the call, +2 folds, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is 3-8 queen with 2 hearts. I check, and +1 bets out for $120. Jack then raises all in for $320 total. Obviously I can't call here, so I fold. The player in +1 tanks for almost 2 whole minutes before finally flicking in the call, so we'll get to see a run out. The turn is a 2 of spades. The river is a jack of clubs. Both players flip over their hand, and they both have ace-queen offsuit. Looking back and being a little results-oriented here, I'm okay with just calling pre-flop. Truth is, Jack was looking for action, and there's no guarantee a raise would have pushed him off his hand, and there were still 2 other players to act behind me, so I'm okay with the call here pre-flop. In the final hand of the night, we're in +2 when we look down at King 10 of clubs. Jack and under the gun makes the call before the action folds to me, and I bump it up to $20. It folds all the way back around to Jack, who makes the call. We're off to a flop heads up. The flop is 9 Jack Queen with 2 clubs, so I flop the stone cold nuts here with an open-ended draw to the better nuts. It checks to me, and having this board so locked up, I decide to go ahead and check behind. The turn is a queen of spades, so it pairs the board. It checks to me, and I start to assemble a bet.
No. You want to keep me in, right? I do. I can't let you catch up for free.
I bet out for $30 here, and Jack ends up making the fold. I played for about 10 or 15 more minutes, but 7 o'clock was approaching, and my car was over at Firestone, and that's what time they closed, so I didn't want to leave the game. I was having a blast, but unfortunately it was time for me to rack up and call it a day. I got to give some credit to Brad Owen. I tried to do the fancy Brad Owen racking of my chips, and as you can see, didn't go very well.
So there we go. Not a terrible session. Even booked a small win, which felt nice. Felt like I hadn't done that in a while. We were into the game for $200, out for $374, so about $175 in less than 3 hours. Not bad. If you enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe. Leave any comments down below. I always read them. We'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.